Welcome to the Hoop Heads Podcast. It's Mike Klinzing here with my co-host Jason Sunkle tonight,
It's trade season, Mike.
and it is trade season. We have altered the landscape of the NBA in a way that I don't think anyone anticipated. We thought about coming on Sunday night and doing an old-fashioned emergency pod, but we figured we would just
Yeah,
wait and let everybody else hash it out. And now we could share our thoughts
yeah. We
after
might
kind of
we might
having
have to we might have to have a second pod on Thursday night after our episode, like interviews, if like a bunch of
yes.
trades happen because the trade deadline is Thursday. Accurate, right? That's the trade deadline is Thursday.
It is Thursday, yes. Thursday, probably, I think it's usually 3, right? 3 p.m., I
Yeah,
believe is the,
midday.
yeah. So,
So, but yeah, so it all started on Saturday when I texted you that J.C. Sheldon got traded from Dallas to Connecticut. Little did we know that that was the least of the Dallas concerns when I and then so just a timeline events for you, Mike. So Sunday night, I I know you're gonna laugh at me, but I watched the Royal Rumble just because I like to watch the Royal Rumble because old WWE Royal Rumble. It's just a classic. So I'm like, it's like 11:15. I'm like, you know what? I've been staying up really late the last few nights. I watched the Royal Rumble. I'm gonna go to bed, and I texted you right before I went to bed, Lakers, because they had just dismantled the Knicks. I had that. I had the Royal Rumble on my big screen, and I had the Lakers Knicks game on my iPad, and I was kind of like keeping tabs on both. And I just text you Lakers dot dot dot, and then Sunday morning. So Sunday mornings is typically my day to sleep in. So I slept in a little bit because I'm up early every other day. And I wake up and I look at my phone, and your text message just says "Wow," and then I see I have 15 other text messages, and I'm like, "What the heck is this?" And I see Luca. My dad sends me a text. Isn't Luca the guy we went and watched a few years ago, who for Dallas? Isn't he like one of the best players in the NBA? Why would the Dallas trade him at 25? And then like our group text and the text I get from my one of my coaches, Ryan Schlitter, says, "I guess the JC trade isn't leading off the Hoop Heads podcast this week." And I said, uh, "Nope, that's not going to happen." It's just it. I couldn't believe it. So then, like, obviously, your text, wow. My original text to you that said Lakers had nothing to do with the Luca trade because
right.
I
No, I
texted
knew
you at
that.
11, and
No, I
and
knew
the
that.
trade happened at 1.
No, I knew that. So that's why I responded. So you sent me that, and I was in bed at that point, and I really hadn't. I'd just been checking scores. I hadn't watched any of that Lakers Knicks game, and so I knew that the Lakers had killed the Knicks, and I knew that's what you were referring to, but I didn't respond to that night. And then the next morning, I got up and I was getting ready to go work out, and I just threw open ESPN just to look at the late scores, and saw that Luca had been traded. And obviously, again, nobody saw that coming in any way, shape, or form. There was not one person that knew that trade was
Dude, Danny
possible,
Ainge was a
imminent.
part of the trade and didn't know.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
help facilitate it. I don't know. Where do you want to start with this thing? You tell me which angle you want to start with, and then we can dive into it.
Okay, well, my angle that I want to start with is okay. This is the second worst trade in any modern sports era, in my opinion.
Okay, what's the worst?
Deshaun Watson. We're not. Deshaun Watson's the worst trade. It's not. Listen, we're not going to sit here and talk about the Browns, but the Deshaun Watson trade didn't only ruin the quarterback position, but it's now lost us. It gave up the prime of Nick Chubb. We lost a whole bunch of other players, and not to mention Myles Garrett now wants out. Anyways, this is the
Can
second
I
worst trade.
can I make a Miles? Can I have a contrary opinion on Miles Garrett?
You can have a country opinion all you want, but
Okay, Miles,
that guy's played injured the last 2 years and
he
has
has,
produced.
he has, but I feel like he's overrated. I'm not. He's good,
He just got elected,
but
but
listen,
defensive player of the year again. Mike,
listen, he's good. He's
what do you
fine.
want him
He's
to
good.
do? He's
He's
overrated. He's
good.
won defensive player in the year.
He's
Okay,
good.
I guess if we
He's over.
compare it to Rudy Gobert,
He's
we're
overrated. He's
I can understand
overrated,
your
man.
point.
That's all I'm gonna say. But Miles Garrett is overrated. That's all I'm gonna say.
Anyways, so this trade has to be the second worst. Here's why. Okay, Gobert got 4 first-round picks, right?
I believe Mikal Bridges got 5.
How does Dallas, like, you're that obsessed? Listen, the whole timeline of this thing. Okay, you contacted Lakers. You want Anthony Davis because of your relationship, Nico Collins, right? Nico Collins. Nico Collins is his name, right? Right. I've heard his name. I've heard his name more in the last 48 hours.
Nico Collins, I believe, was a wide receiver for the Houston Texans. I
Oh,
believe the guy you're
well,
referring
same
to is
state. What?
Nico Harrison. Nico
Okay,
Harrison
well, it
is who
may as
you're
well have
referring
been
to.
Nico Collins making the decision because Jesus Christ, you gave up Luka Doncic for a guy who's 6 years older. Step one, 6 years older, just as injury prone, in my opinion. Okay, hasn't carried a team to the NBA Finals by himself. And I'm sorry, Klay Thompson is a shell. Kyrie Irving, he can do it. Like he can be the guy for. But this Dallas team is definitely not better. There's no way that you can say that this Dallas team is better. Okay, you got no picks, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Mike. I'm gonna look real quick. They also had to give up Maxi Kleber, who is in my opinion, an important rotational piece for them for this trade. I'm not really worried about the Morris brother, like that guy. I'm not really worried about him. They had to. They also gave up draft consideration to the Utah Jazz. Okay, like I don't know. I, I think, to me, the whole fact that there was originally a draft pick involved, and there was originally, what player was involved originally, Mike? Someone else. Oh, Dalton Connect was involved, right?
Yes, I mean, I don't know. At this point, I don't know that you can figure out anything that's really
But but
true. But
but but the fact that Dallas did this and gave up on a guy who's arguably, when healthy, and by the way, he's not really had a major history of injury. I know this year he did the whole calf. He's been in and out a little bit with the calf thing. He's 25 years old, Mike. He's 25. I just don't comprehend. That would be like that would be like the Cavs just giving up on Mobley right now and trading Mobley, which I know after tonight's game maybe you want to, but
3 for 14 for Evan tonight. Not his best look.
rough game for the Cavs tonight. They lost by 7, but I just can't imagine a world where I was going to wake up. This wasn't even on my radar. Like this wasn't even. I didn't even think. Like we've been talking for weeks, Mike. What can the Lakers do to improve this roster? What can they do? And I don't. I want to be clear here. I don't know that they've really improved their roster because they don't have a big that's productive, right? I mean,
You're not a fan
Marquise
of
Morris.
Cincinnati Molars, Jackson Hayes?
No. But what? He. I just. I mean, I know, and they're doing a number to the Clippers tonight. I think the last time I saw it's a commercial now, but I think it was like it's 51-32 or something like that. But like, I just don't understand what Dallas is thinking here. And then what's financial implications? I mean, Luka, I don't know what he can even sign now. He's out of the Supermax situation. He won't get a. I don't know how much money he could get, but it's way less than what he was going to get. And for a guy who just took your team to the NBA Finals last year, I just think it's crazy. That would be like the Cavs after 2007, LeBron carrying the corpses of those players that he was playing with, being like, you know, we're gonna trade LeBron. I don't know who would be an analogous player, a little bit older, big in 2007. Oh, well, here we'll trade LeBron to the Lakers for Shaquille O'Neal and, like, I don't know, or we'll trade LeBron to San Antonio, although San Antonio wouldn't have done that. LeBron to San Antonio for Tim Duncan. Like, I just don't understand the rationale to me. I guess that Tim Duncan's a terrible example because Tim Duncan was not aging at that point. I'll go back to my Shaq example. Trading LeBron to the Lakers for Shaquille O'Neal. Or Miami, wherever he was in 2007. Like, that's just crazy to me.
All right. So clearly this trade is insane. There's no real way to defend it. if you're Nico Harrison and the Mavericks.
Or Nico
We could
Collins and the
try.
Houston Texans.
Right, exactly. Or anybody else named Nico who could have just as easily made this trade and probably gotten more than what Nico Harrison got. It, there's no real way to defend it from Dallas's point of view, and we can try to do that here in a minute. Obviously, from the Lakers' point of view, you have to just imagine when Rob Pelinka gets the call from Nico Harrison and is like, "Hey, we're willing to trade Luka. What are you going to give us?" I mean, at that point, anything on the Lakers roster you would think would be. I mean, if they just said, "Hey, we want LeBron and not AD," do the Lakers flinch at trading
I
LeBron?
don't think they trade
I mean,
LeBron.
I know he has a no trade clause, and he could have vetoed it, which he probably would have. But yeah, I mean, they trade LeBron in an instant for Luka, and clearly, when they start asking for Anthony Davis, fine, no problem. And then the fact that they got out with only getting the Lakers 2029 first round pick and not the 2031 and no pick swaps. And look, Max Christie has become a valuable player here in the last 25 games, but he's hardly a proven guy that Dallas is going to play crunch time minutes in playoff games if Dallas even gets there based on the direction that they're heading. They lost again tonight. I forget who beat them tonight,
Oh,
but
yeah, Mike. Mike, by the way, this adds more tankage to your NBA draft total. By the way, just so you know, because
it's okay.
I think Dallas. I don't think Dallas.
I'm just gonna order you. I'm gonna just order you a pizza
I
right now.
mean, I'm
All
up.
right.
I'm up 36 now, Mike. I'm up 36 now. I
Okay.
went up by 4. I
Okay.
went up 4 this week.
Yeah, well, I think I might as well just at this point. I think I might as well just pack this whole season in, unless something very bizarre happens at the trade deadline. I don't see how it really makes a whole lot of opportunity for me to be able to come back. So, look, the deal is insane. If you're the Lakers, you do it for anything and everything that's on your roster, and the fact that they did it for very, very little obviously makes it even more of a positive because now the Lakers can either try to add to the roster that they have now in the coming 2 days before the trade deadline, or they can just kind of go ahead and say, let's throw LeBron and Luke out on the floor once Luke is healthy. And maybe those two guys and the remainder of the roster that
He's
we have
supposedly
is
going to play
good
on
enough.
Saturday, Mike.
Yeah, maybe not. Who knows? We'll see. It'll be interesting. It'll be very interesting to watch those two guys play together and figure out how to navigate the court and the ball handling and all the things that'll kind of go along with having two players who are used to controlling every facet of the action and having the ball
If
in their hands. It'll be
here's my
interesting to see how
question,
those two
Mike.
guys.
If
Sure.
you were JJ Redick in this
Okay.
situation, are is your thought? I'm going to have LeBron bring the ball up the court. I'm going to have Luka coming off screens and not have the ball in his hands, or are you going to have Luka with the ball in his hands primarily and LeBron off the ball, setting screens, rolling to the basket, dunking?
I think you're probably going with a combination of those guys alternating. I don't want to say, hey, this is your possession, this is my possession, but you're not going to take the ball out of either one of those guys' hands consistently and give it to the other one. I think both guys are going to have the ball a lot.
To add to that though, too, Mike, the other thing that I was thinking about, like now they can pretty much guarantee that you're going to have either LeBron or Luka on the floor at any time. You're going to have an offensive a person because as good as Anthony Davis is offensively, okay, he's not a
He's
creator.
not a
Like he,
right. He's not a creator in any way, shape, or form. He is a finisher. He's not a guy who is penetrating, attacking a defense, and then drawing and creating opportunities for other guys. Whereas in Luka and LeBron, you have probably two of the, I don't know, throw out whatever number you want, top, let's just say top 10 for sure in terms of passing and their ability to create opportunities for other guys. So it would seem to me that although each one of their usage rates would go down as a result of the presence of the other, that their presence on the floor, at least on the offensive end of the floor, is going to be really, really hard to deal with if they can figure out how to make it gel, and if they can each give a little bit of the spotlight, the ball, however you want to look at it, to the other guy, they're generational passers. And I don't know if the roster, as it's constructed right now, is really designed to take advantage of what an ideal roster might look like around Luka and LeBron. I don't know if it's this particular set of characters is positioned well to be able to take advantage of what Luka and LeBron potentially could be on the floor. But I think the bigger thing from the Lakers' perspective, and I think it goes to your question of where do you put the ball and where do you put Luka, where do you put LeBron on the floor, which one of them has the ball in their hands. At this point, when the Lakers make this trade, you've now reset your franchise. It's no longer about LeBron. At this point, your franchise is about Luka. And so the days of
How
we
many
have to
days?
keep
How many years is
LeBron.
that going to last? How many games will that last with LeBron? I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Well, how many games is it going to last with LeBron where he's happy to be the second fiddle? You and I have been saying this since we started the podcast that at some point, right, he was going to defer and it was going to become AD's team, and that obviously never happened. To this year, maybe to some degree, you could make an argument that AD had surpassed LeBron as a player, but he still wasn't driving the car. LeBron's still driving the car, even though Davis was maybe finishing and maybe playing his role a little bit better than what LeBron was playing his. And again, it's all the prism of how we're watching LeBron has just shifted because of how good he has been in his career. And when you're looking at 40-year-old LeBron, you're not seeing how good 40-year-old LeBron is. You're just kind of trying to compare him to 28-year-old LeBron, which isn't fair to him. If you just took
What about
40-year-old
40-year-old
LeBron as
Jordan? You want to compare him to 40-year-old Jordan?
sure. I mean, I'm fine with that. 40-year-old Jordan was, I mean, he was able to, he was scoring, he scored 20 a game. So it's, look, I don't want to litigate Jordan
Oh, I
versus
had to
LeBron
litigate
here.
it on the bus today, home from our
Did you?
basketball game. Like, oh
With
god,
who? Some of
all
your
these
kids?
these kids are talking a bunch of dumb nonsense. I'll just leave it
It's
at that.
ridiculous. I just, I can't, I can't respect anybody. I just can't.
Well, I mean, they're middle
It,
schoolers. Come on, Mike. We can't. They only know what they know. They don't know. They
I
don't.
know that's what I'm saying. You can't. There's no. If you are of an age where you watch both of those guys play in their prime and watch them a lot, I'm sorry. You can. There's no way you can come to the conclusion that LeBron is a better player than Michael Jordan. You just can't. But that's a topic that we've hit on
Yeah.
many times, and I'm
I
sure
take
we'll
Roy outside. I'll
hit
be
on
right
it.
back, Mike. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Sorry, I'll be right back. I'm back, but I'm gonna have to go back up. And like, she's still outside. She was acting like she was gonna throw up, and now she's eating a bunch of grass. So it normally means she's not feeling good. So good stuff. Old dog, man. All right.
I understand.
So I gotta. So I'll probably have to go up in like 8 minutes.
That's fine. Yeah, sounds like a plan.
All right. Go ahead.
Okay. So I think maybe the best way to break this down even further and to kind of get into the weeds of the trade is to look at it and try to go devil's advocate on both sides of the trade. Because I think we've made clear what our thoughts are and the fact that the trade just, I mean, it's insane. There's no other way to describe it, why you would trade away a 25-year-old with the resume that Luka has at this point. So I think really what you have to do is look at, let's try to play devil's advocate for the Dallas Mavericks and explain what could possibly be the thinking. And I have a working theory that I'm going to throw out at you. I don't know that it really makes complete sense because it's not apples to apples, but I'm guessing that this was part of the thought process. And so I'll share that and then maybe you can jump in and react to
Okay, go ahead.
what my thoughts are here on this. So obviously what came out or what people are speculating is sort of behind this trade is that Dallas felt like Luka wasn't in condition, which is true. Really hasn't been in the best condition for the majority of his career, which I would agree is probably true. He has been, I don't know if injury prone is the right word, but he's had this same calf strain. I believe this is the fourth time that he strained his right calf. And so when you look at it and you say, okay, this guy's not in condition. It's clear he's been with the Mavericks for what, 6 years, 7 years, that I would guess that they have had numerous conversations with him about, hey, man, you got to get in shape. Hey, man, you got to have a better diet. Hey, man, you got to come to training camp in the best possible condition so that you can be at your best. Now, again, even without all those things, last year he averaged like 34, 10, and 9. So we're not talking about a guy who's been unproductive, but we are talking about a guy
Zion
who,
Williamson. We're not talking about Zion Williamson.
Luka has a much better resume than Zion Williamson when it comes to NBA basketball. I don't think we're comparing. That's not the comparison I'm about to make. I'm getting to that. So when you think about just the conversations that the Mavericks organization have had with Luka or have had to have with him, I'm sure that it's been repeated in terms of those conditioning issues, in terms of taking care of himself, in terms of coming to camp in shape. And you also have his constant complaining to the officials. You don't know what the relationship was like behind the scenes with him and the coaching staff or him and members of the front office.
Mike, did you watch the press conference? Okay, I know you're making a point. Did you watch the press conference at all?
Yeah.
Jason Kidd looked like he was at a funeral.
Yeah, he didn't look happy, although I don't know how you can, in Jason Kidd's defense, right? He didn't make the trade. And he also works for the Dallas Mavericks organization. So I don't think he was going to be in the business of trashing Luka on his way out the door. I don't think that's what Jason Kidd necessarily wanted to do, but he also can't sit there and be gleeful as he's sitting next to his boss who just made that trade. It's just, I think it was a tough spot for Jason Kidd to have to sit up there while Nico Harrison was talking and try to, again, can he put on a happy face? I don't know. I mean, I think you could read his emotions as to how he felt about that trade. And that's not to say that, and this is again me making the devil's advocate case, that the Mavericks obviously had to be tired of whatever Luka's act was behind the scenes. They had to believe that he was never going to take his conditioning seriously, or they didn't believe he was ever going to make that change. They believed that he was going to continue because of his poor nutrition and conditioning, that he was going to continue to get injured. And therefore, they looked at it and they said, do we want to pay this guy $350 million over the course of 5 years? And so the comparison that I'm going to make, and when you think about this, and again, this is just me playing devil's advocate. This is not what I'm saying I believe. I'm just saying this is part of the thought process. When I look at Doncic and you think about projecting him forward, the guy that I'm projecting him forward to potentially be like is Joel Embiid. And hear me out. Here's the comparison. And it doesn't work completely, which I'll get to in a minute, but
It
the
doesn't work
comparison,
because he's actually done something in the playoffs.
correct. It doesn't work because Luka has been, he has elevated his game in the playoffs versus Joel Embiid has de-elevated his game in the playoffs. But let's put that aside for a second. And you look at Joel Embiid over the course of his entire career, and he's a guy who has gotten hurt all the time. He's a guy who has not been available for his team at full strength in moments when he's been needed. Clearly, he hasn't come through, which that's where the comparison falls off. But still, if you're the Dallas Mavericks, I think what you're saying to yourself is, do we want to be in this Luka Doncic world where we don't know year to year, game to game, day to day, whether this guy's going to be healthy, taking his conditioning seriously, available to us on the floor? And then I have to believe that there was some behind the scenes, this guy's a pain in the neck to deal with, whether it was for Jason Kidd, whether it was for Nico Harrison, whether it was for somebody somewhere or everybody everywhere. That has to have factored into why Dallas made that decision. Why this argument falls apart is because, again, Luka has performed in the playoffs. I believe he has better playoff averages than he does regular season averages over the course of his career. And you're talking about a guy who's been, before the age of 25, has been on 5 first team All NBAs. So the comparison to Joel Embiid doesn't work if you just straight look at those things. But I think the general idea of looking at a franchise player who maybe isn't reliable, a franchise player
His
who
playoff
is
Mike, so his playoff uh, 30.9 points, 9.4 rebounds, 8 assists, 2 steals on 46% from the field.
I think he's second all time in points per game behind Michael Jordan. So look, that the comparison falls apart when you start talking about playoff production. But I do think that there is something there in the sense of, if your franchise player is somebody that you don't believe is going to ever take conditioning seriously, that you don't believe is going to be able to stay healthy, I could see a world where you look at that and say, I don't want to sign up for that. I don't want to sign up for the ups and downs of, is this guy going to be in shape? Is this guy going to play? Again, it's crazy to think that because the guy's 25 years old. And we can all think back to when we were 25, and you might not have been the best decision maker at the age of 25. Hopefully, at the age we are now, we would make better decisions. We would take better care of ourselves. You get what I'm saying. And so the idea that Luka's never going to get in shape, I don't know how you set foot on that ground and think that that's 100% the way it's going to go. Now, could it go that way? Sure. But the production that he's put out there on the floor, with even with all the things, all his faults at this point, it still seems crazy. But I think the argument, the devil's advocate argument is, we don't want to be in business. We don't want to be relying upon a guy who isn't reliable, who gets hurt all the time, who's not in shape, who we've had, again, and throw whatever number of conversations. I'm sure the Mavericks organization has talked to him over and over and over and over again. Dude, get in shape. Dude, come in and be the best possible version of yourself that you can be. And obviously, he hasn't taken any of that to heart at this point. And so maybe if his attitude was surly, if he was difficult to deal with, if you don't think he's going to stay healthy, if you don't think he's ever going to take his conditioning seriously, maybe he was such a headache and such a worry that you decide you got to cut bait on him. It's crazy to think that, but that had to be somewhere along the line of thinking. So I don't know what do you think about the theory of just the fact that they didn't want to deal with a guy who was going to be unreliable and also a pain in the neck moving forward.
My only problem with that whole line of thinking is, I mean, you can say all those things, but he's performed at every time that he's been on the floor, and I just can't listen. I don't see. Here's my biggest issue. They are not getting in any kind of situation in the draft where they're going to get even close to the quality of player of Luka Doncic. And now that here's my thought. Now that they've traded him, who clearly is like, what player is going to want to go to the Dallas Mavericks organization and think that they're going to stay there for long term? What player is going to trust them? Because he clearly had no clue this was coming. Okay, the did you see Luka's press conference today, Mike? When they asked him some questions, they asked him like, did you have any inkling? He's like, I had no clue anything. Like, they've never asked me or said, there was the report that Nico said that Doncic had said wouldn't guarantee that he signed his supermax, and Doncic was like, I never said that. No one in my circle ever said that. And the way that he said it, like, and like his letter to Dallas basically didn't thank the Mavs organization, but basically said, I wanted to be here my whole career. Like, I just don't see, like, I something's fishy here. Like, and I don't know what's fishy about it, other than the fact that it just doesn't make sense to me. I understand that he is out of shape, and I understand that, but he's been out of shape and still performing at such a high level. You got to deal with it. It's not like I'm going to use the Zion Williamson situation. Like, that guy has literally been out of shape and not able to even get on the basketball floor. Like, and he comes back and then he gets re-injured again. And he's been the other aspect you can look at is, okay, Luka's basically been playing professional basketball since he was 15, 16, right? Like, he was playing overseas, playing professional basketball. So yeah, he's got a lot of miles on him. Okay, but 15 and 16-year-olds, they can run up and down the floor. They're all right, whatever. But, like, I I just don't understand. My biggest thing is I don't understand what this gets Dallas, other than out of the the potential contract situation. But you're not gonna be competitive for the next 5 years now. Like, you might toil away in, like, you might be a 5, 6 seed in the West, but they don't. There's no, who are they getting that if they faced Denver? Anthony Davis can maybe. I mean, Anthony Davis has not proven that he can stop Jokic, so they're not beating Denver. They're not beating the Lakers. I don't think. Like, who's guarding LeBron and Luka now? I mean, Luka's gonna if they. I don't know if they play again. Luka's gonna drop 50 on them. I'm guaranteeing it. He's gonna try to drop 50 on them.
I
Okay.
mean, look, Dallas's problem is not the team that they have put together now. Their problem is not going to be defensively, because on defense they could put out, other than Kyrie, you can put out a huge defensive lineup, right? Because you can run out AD at the 4, you can run out Lively or Gafford at the 5. I know Lively's hurt, may not be back until the playoffs, or maybe not even for the playoffs. But you have a center that you can play next to AD. Then you talk PJ Washington. Then you
But who's
put
scoring, Mike?
whatever. Well, this is why I'm talking about defensively. I'm saying defensively, other than Kyrie, you're going to be able to throw out. You got Jaden Hardy. You got Max Christie, who came over from the Lakers. You're going to be able to put a defensive-minded, huge team on the floor other than Kyrie. So the problem is not going to be on that end of the floor. The problem for the Mavericks is going to be on the offensive end of the floor, where your two creators on that team are Kyrie Irving, great when he's healthy, and if he's healthy, and Spencer Dinwiddie. So if I'm trying to win a title, which if you're the Dallas Mavericks and you went to the NBA Finals last year with Luka Doncic, I would think your goal, and this is what Nico Harrison stated in the press conference, that the goal was to improve our team today, give ourselves a better chance to win now. Obviously, you can't make that case. Offensively, Kyrie has been last year's playoffs for him were very hit or miss. He had some really good games, and he also had some games where he disappeared. And prior to that, he had a long stretch of being pretty unproductive as a playoff player from whatever 2024 back to the 2016 NBA Finals. So that was an 8-year stretch where he really wasn't either in the playoffs or was not very productive when his teams did make the playoffs. And so to think that Kyrie Irving at age 31, who has been injury prone throughout his career, is going to lead your team as the sole slash main creative engine of an offense. I just don't think that's realistic. And as good as AD is, like we talked about earlier, AD is not a guy who is creating shots for other people. AD is a guy who is finishing plays. He's not starting them. And so if you're Dallas, a secondary playmaker, somebody who's better than Spencer Dinwiddie seems like who they'd be wanting to target. Of course, they went out and traded Quentin Grimes for Caleb Martin from the Sixers. And Caleb Martin is more of a finisher. Again, a guy who in 2023, when he was with the Heat, obviously got hot and killed the Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals, hasn't really played to that level, but he's still at his best. He's not a guy who's creating for other people. He's a guy who's making jump shots or finishing plays. So you can make an argument that Dallas is better defensively. Obviously, you take Luka out of the lineup and you're removing a poor defensive player. You replace him with AD, a much better player. They're going to be huge on defense. They're going to be hard to score on. I just don't know that offensively. Look, you're going to reorient your team in a completely different way with Luka as the hub of your offense. You're playing a certain way. Without Luka in that lineup, now you can play in a slightly different way. Obviously, Kyrie's a completely different type of creator, ball handler than what Luka was. And so I think the Mavericks defensively will be fine. Offensively, there's no way you can look at this and say that Dallas is better today. There's no way that you can look at this and say that in 2 years they're going to be better, or in 4 years they're going to be better, or in 5 years they're going to win this trade. It just the window for them to quote win this trade is infinitesimal, and it's all based upon the fact that Luka is not for some reason able to be on the floor and be productive, and that's the only way that Dallas can say that they are going to win this trade is if somehow Luka ends up being hurt, not being able to play, not continuing on with the career path and trajectory that he's been on to this point, which indicates that he's going to be one of the 10 best players in the history of the game. And he hasn't even hit his prime. I mean, he's going to turn 26, I think, sometime in February. And usually NBA players, 26, 27, 28, those are the prime years. Luka's not even there yet. And to give up on a guy that early in his career who has the kind of resume that Luka does, there's a reason why everybody was shocked. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. Um, the other thing, I just still can't get past. Like, I don't understand the end game for Dallas now. I understand that they want to be a defensive minded team, but I mean, a year and a half from now, isn't AD a free agent?
Think it isn't Luka a free agent?
I
Not that you want to let him, not that you want to let him walk out the door, but at a certain point, if you don't want to pay the guy, letting the guy there's worse things than letting a guy you don't want to pay walk out the door rather than taking back. And I don't think they took back a bad contract or bad players. I think both Christie and AD clearly can help Dallas, but you're talking about trading away a guy who is a consensus top 3 player in the entire league. It, it's just it goes beyond the logic. I just don't understand what Dallas could possibly be doing. Like I said, their window to win this trade, if all these players, let's say everybody's on the floor for the next 5 years, there's no comparison what Luka's going to do for the Lakers compared to what AD and Max Christie are going to do for the Mavericks. The only way Dallas can win this trade is if Luka misses a significant portion of the rest of his career. Otherwise, it's a complete disaster. There's no way that the Lakers are not winning this trade, which again, if we shift to the Lakers point of view, I mean, come on, like Luka Doncic falls into your lap where the GM of the Mavericks only calls the Lakers, and then they only get one number one pick in 2029. They don't get the Lakers 2031. They don't get any pick swaps. They don't get any other players in the deal. I think Max Christie is a good player, but he has like a 25 game track record at this point. So I don't know how much you can believe in him completely, that you found this 3-and-D guy that's going to be playing in game 7 of an NBA finals. I don't know that you got that kind of guy in Max Christie. So it's just crazy that he ended up on the Lakers of all franchises, that the Lakers are the one that get the call from Nico Harrison. It's somehow, if you're not a fan of the Lakers or you're an anti-Lakers person, you have to be just unbelievably distraught that here it goes again, where through no real effort of their own, the Lakers wind up with a guy who is a top 5 talent in the league, and potentially he could be there for the next 12 to 15 years in a Laker uniform. And if you're the Lakers, like I said earlier, you just completely reorient your thinking around Luka. And the timeline now becomes Luka's. You're no longer worried about, well, we're only going to have LeBron for another year or two or whatever it might be. You have to build with the idea that we're building this roster and this team around Luka moving forward. And yeah, maybe LeBron's a part of that, but LeBron no longer is the focal point of what the Lakers should be doing when it comes to team building. But who knows? Stranger things have happened.
Yep. Hey, do we need to do a read tonight, Mike?
We do not.
Okay. Okay, so then the other trade this week, and I don't think we need to spend as long on this one, but maybe we will. But Fox traded to San Antonio with Wemby. And they gave up more for Fox than with and returned as far as like draft picks and stuff than the Lakers gave up for Luka. That's crazy, by the way. I still think that's even, I don't know if that's a little nuts too. But you know, obviously the big part of this is Fox going to San Antonio, Zach LaVine going to Sacramento. The Chicago Bulls continuing to be. Listen, this is a big win for my NBA totals pool because I have Bulls losses and now they're in the tanker, baby. They are emptying the tank. They're
getting their own first round pick back this year clearly cements them in. We are not trying to win games. You'd have to think that Vucevic is going to get traded before the deadline on Thursday. You would have. Where does
he end? What? Yeah, I don't know where he ends up. Where?
I'm out.
Can he end up in LA? Can he end up in LA? Can they make that happen? The Lakers?
Then you've got. I don't think he's the guy prototypically that they would be looking to add. I guess if you just wanted to say, hey, we're just going to go all offense, then maybe Vucci Main is your guy. But if you were trying to get somebody in there that can protect the rim and help to get a few rebounds and clog up the paint, I don't think that Vucevic isn't your guy. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I don't know. Listen, regardless, Chicago's in the tanker now. Fox is with Wemby. This is going to be fun. And San Antonio didn't have to give any of their big pieces up, which is huge. They kept Castle. They kept Wemby, obviously. They kept Chris Paul, which there had been some rumors that
kept Vassell.
They had rumors that Chris Paul was going to be involved in that trade. But that's a good pick. And I don't know what that's going to look like. Like is obviously Fox is going to start. Is Chris Paul starting or is he coming off the bench? Because like I don't know if Chris Paul has ever come off the bench. Has he come off the bench before?
Last year with the
Oh
Warriors,
yeah.
I think I think if you're a San Antonio Spurs fan and you're looking at how we're going to use Chris Paul, which obviously is a very minimal part of what this whole deal means, but Chris Paul, the year he was in Oklahoma City and he played with SGA and who was the other guy that was in the? They had three. They had and Schroeder, right? So it was Chris Paul, Schroeder, and SGA.
Schroeder, like is it was Schroeder?
Schroeder, not Schroeder. Schroeder plays the piano, and so I guess what I'm saying is that I think Chris Paul, despite the fact that you think of him as being a ball dominant guy, can play off the ball when necessary. And then also, again, just like we talked about, you're going to have 48 minutes of LeBron or Luka on the floor. Here, you're going to have 48 minutes of very, very competent point guard play on the floor next to Luka when you talk about De'Aaron Fox and Chris Paul. So I think that whether he comes off the bench or he starts, I'm not sure it's necessarily relevant. What's relevant is that they're going to have 48 minutes of good point guard play around Wemby. And when you do that, you're going to elevate his game and also elevate the game of those guards. I mean, look, I've been a big De'Aaron Fox guy. Anybody who's listened to the podcast,
You listen.
I
You almost you. The only guy you talk about more with him is Zion about how much you
well,
love him.
I just
You
yeah,
used to
I
be
mean,
a
I just
Markel
think
Fultz guy too, but
I like Fultz, and obviously not in the league anymore. Look, the thing with De'Aaron Fox is that I feel like if he wasn't in Sacramento, if he hadn't played his career to this point in Sacramento, he would be a much bigger star. And he's a guy who is one of probably the five fastest guys in the league. He's left-handed. He gets into the paint pretty much at will. And then you're talking about now he's going to have a 7'5" dude to be able to throw lobs to. I feel like he's been, what was it, 2 years ago? Didn't he win the original whatever the clutch scoring award is, the Jerry West award or whatever it is, the NBA's clutch award? He won it that first year, and the season that they did, and I've heard a lot of people argue that, well, if he's so good, how come he's not? Is he really driving winning? And I'm like, look, Sacramento for 20 years was just an atrocious, abominable franchise. And I'm not sure they're not still an
listen,
atrocious, abominable
we were
franchise.
talking. We talked today on the bus, all right, when we were having the same conversation. A kid who's from another country who's lived in Chicago for a few years before he moved here. We were talking about his favorite players, like foreign players he looked up to, and he said Peja Stojakovic. I almost fell out of my seat. I was
There you
like,
go.
what middle schooler knows who Peja Stojakovic is? He must really
Not
appreciate
yeah,
Peja
not
Stojakovic.
many, not many. But I guess so. Basically for 20 years, the Sacramento Kings are just nothing. There's nothing to that franchise. And the year that they go and get the second seed, if you remember, they lost the Warriors in 7, but De'Aaron Fox in game 6, like I think in the fourth quarter of that game, remember he broke the tip of his finger. And so in game 7, he had his finger taped up and didn't play as well, but he was great in that series. And so I feel like to say that De'Aaron Fox doesn't drive winning when he's played for what is arguably the worst franchise in the NBA, I think over the
Oh,
last
I'm glad
20
you
years,
said
it's
NBA,
probably,
not professional
yeah,
sports, because
it's probably, no, it's not professional sports. I think we're living with that. But to say that he doesn't drive winning when he's played for the Sacramento Kings, who are just grossly mismanaged at every turn, and the number
well,
of
here's the
coaches
question
that
though:
they've run
would
through
you
and
say
everything
the
else.
Sacramento Kings or the Washington Wizards are the worst run team? Because the Wizards are up there too. Like
I
they're
feel like the Wizard. Well, you're probably
because
right. Well, again, over
Sacramento's
the
kind
course of
of
that time,
Sacramento's kind of in the Washington Wizard territory. Like currently, at least, of when LeBron was here the first time, the Wizards were stuck in
yeah,
the 4 or 5 seed, and they'd have to play the Cavs every single year in the first or second round. Like,
okay, but that's the whole point. Sacramento had like a 20-year playoff drought before they made the playoffs whatever that was 2 years ago, right? So
Yeah.
you're talking about the Wizards playing in the playoffs against LeBron. So clearly, look, the Wizards haven't really been well managed, let's put it that way. But they did have some moderate success. The problem with the Wizards is more that they were just trapped kind of in mediocrity, where they never put a team together that was good enough to actually compete for anything, but they never got bad enough to actually tank to be able to get the kind of players that you would need to build a successful franchise. So now you could argue that although the Wizards might be the worst NBA team in history, that this is actually good management and good business practice, that they're going to give themselves the best odds to be able to try to land Cooper Flag and or AJ DeBansta next year,
What
whatever it's going to
what
be.
what team has the longest playoff drought now in the NBA? Is it the Clip? No, not the Clippers. Is it the Port? Who is it? I'm trying to think. Is it the Wizards?
I
Bradley
mean, I would.
Beal
I mean,
or
that's not
Detroit?
that. I
Right.
mean, that's not as long. Detroit, yeah, it's probably Detroit. It's probably Detroit. I think
I'll
that's a
see.
good
I'll
bet.
I'll, I'll get on the crack research staff. Will get on it, Mike.
All right, get on it. Yeah, I think it's probably Detroit. So look, I mean, here's the thing. I think De'Aaron Fox has been criminally underrated. I think he is just he's going to be a perfect fit in San Antonio with Wemby. I love the fact that his speed, his ability to get into the lane, combined with Wemby's ability to catch lobs, roll to the basket, and to be able to spread the floor and go outside the 3-point line, which then draws the other team's big out away from the rim, which gives Fox even more of a runway to attack. The one real weakness of De'Aaron Fox's game, which it's still kind of weird that it is a weakness when you consider the physical tools that he has in terms of his speed and quickness and length, but he's never been a really good defensive player.
We were
However,
wrong. We were wrong, Mike. We were wrong.
we were
Charlotte
wrong.
Hornets,
Okay, well, that makes
8 years.
sense.
Detroit and San
Okay.
Antonio are 5. The
Okay.
Wizards. The Wizards made the playoffs in 2021.
There you go.
Bradley Beal,
So,
I
all
guess.
right, there you go. Anyway, I just think with Wemby behind you, even if you're a turnstile, you have a generational defensive player behind you. And sometimes you wonder, guy gets into a new environment and a new system. Certainly Fox has the tools to be at least an adequate defender. And probably he gets upgraded to adequate just because he has Victor behind him. And so to me, there was some criticism that Fox is maybe a little bit older and a little bit outside of the timeline. Maybe he's not a completely perfect fit. Maybe is he good enough to be the number 2 on a championship team? Look, all those concerns, I guess, are valid, but I think if you're San Antonio, one, especially when you look at the price that they paid to get him, and you mentioned earlier that they didn't give up any of their young players that were critical to what they're trying to accomplish. The draft picks that they gave up, sure, they gave up a few, but they still have a lot of good, and in fact, better draft picks than the ones that they gave to Sacramento in this particular deal. And so I think when you start looking at the totality of what happened here, it just feels like San Antonio put themselves in a really, really good position with the acquisition of De'Aaron Fox because Wemby's already he's going to make an all NBA team this year. He's already one of the top 15 players in the league. And I know they're below 500 and I know their roster is really young, but in another year or two when De'Aaron Fox is what 28 maybe,
Yeah.
29 and Wemby's 23 or 24, that team's going to be ready to win because Wemby's going to be that good. And you can hold out and try to find the perfect player or maybe find somebody who's better than De'Aaron Fox. But the reality is that you sometimes have to strike when the iron is hot and when a guy's available. And De'Aaron Fox was available. He made it clear that he wanted to go to San Antonio. anytime I think you can make a trade with the Sacramento Kings, it's probably you should probably go ahead and do it because you're probably going to come out on top in that trade. And it just feels like for what San Antonio gave up, for what they were able to get in De'Aaron Fox, I think you couldn't have done like I rate that trade an A+ for San Antonio. I just
Yeah.
think that Fox elevates Wemby today and for years into the future. And they still have enough draft capital, young players, flexibility that if somebody else becomes available in trade or whatever, that it would be, I don't want to say easy because it's never easy, but they're going to have the ability to add another player, whether that player slots in as the number 2 behind Wemby or slots in as the number 3 behind Fox. They have the assets to be able to go get somebody else. Now, they're not going to do that probably at this trade deadline, but in the summer or in the next 2 years, I would anticipate that they're going to bring in another quote unquote star player. And whether that star player slots in as their number 2 or number 3, I don't know. But I'd be happy to build my team around De'Aaron Fox and Victor Wembanyama. Let's put it that way.
All right, Mike. So I got a follow-up question to our trivia question. I'm bringing back a trivia question for you, Mike, because I know you really enjoyed these.
Yeah,
all right.
I love them.
What 2 teams have never made it to the conference finals in the NBA?
What 2 teams have never made it to the conference finals? All right, let me.
I'll give you a hint. It's not Sacramento because they made it in 2002 against the Lakers. So I don't want you to think.
All right, let me look here. Never made it to the conference finals.
Never made it to the conference finals. There's 2 teams that have never made it to the conference finals, and there are 5 teams that have never made it to the NBA finals.
Okay, so conference finals, I'm just looking here.
And it's kind of funny that I'll just say these 2 teams, it's kind of funny that these are the 2 teams.
Okay, well, I'm going through. I worked my way through the East. I'm working my way through the West here.
One Eastern Conference team and one Western Conference team.
So one is the Pelicans.
That is correct. So why would I say it's kind of funny that the other team is the other one?
Yeah. And the other team is in the East. Let me think.
They have a relationship, kind of.
Charlotte.
There you go. Those are the 2 teams. That's kind of funny, isn't it? That's kind of.
I was trying to remember if the Grandmama Alonzo Mourning Charlotte
Nope.
Hornets.
So Charlotte's never. So obviously those 2 teams have never made the NBA Finals, Mike. What other 3 teams have never made the NBA Finals?
I've never made the NBA Finals. Let me look. The Atlanta Hawks have never made the NBA Finals.
Okay. I guess they're including them.
The St. Louis or whatever they were.
Well, they say they did in 1961. They lost to Boston.
Okay, but they weren't the Atlanta Hawks at that point.
No, but it's that probably get considered that franchise, right? So that's probably
So then there's nobody in the East. Everybody in the East has made the NBA Finals
except for Charlotte.
Except for Charlotte, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, right, the other ones are all Western Conference teams.
Yeah, in the West, so you have Memphis.
You're good.
You have Oklahoma City.
Oklahoma City's been in the finals. They lost to.
Sorry. The Clippers.
There you go, Clippers.
Sacramento.
No, Sacramento made the NBA Finals.
They did?
51 again, like when they were whatever they were before.
The Kansas City Kings, the Cincinnati Royals.
Yeah,
Cincinnati Royals.
1951 is what I know. Again, they won it against New York.
Timberwolves.
Yeah, there you go, Timberwolves. There you go, Mike.
Okay, all right.
Sorry, I didn't mean to throw trivia at you. I guess I just put a bow on this trade season episode. I guess the question is, before Thursday, what players are going to get traded, Mike? Like, so there's been rumors swirling that the Suns might trade Durant. There's been rumors that the Cavs are interested in DeAndre Hunter and Cam Johnson. There's been rumors that, well, originally there were rumors that there's been talk that Golden State's called every team to talk about their best player and yada yada yada. Do you think? I guess my question to you is: do you think that another? I'm going to use the word superstar loosely. Do you think another? I don't know what's a super like top 30 NBA players getting traded before the deadline? Because I would think we could agree that Luka, AD's probably a top 30 player, right? In the NBA.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
Fox is probably just outside the top 30 in the NBA, but is sniffing it. Sniffing
yeah,
it.
Probably he might be in the top 30.
Sniffing it. He didn't make the All-Star team. Like,
He's going to be in the top 30. He's going to be in the top 30 now.
oh yeah, but I'm
People
saying,
people
is there another top 30-ish player traded?
I'm going to say yeah. I'm going to say yes because I feel like there's been a lot of smoke, and when there's a lot of smoke, I feel like there's going to be some kind of fire. I don't know who it's going to be. I'm trying to figure out a way to get Durant
Jimmy
to
Butler?
the Cavs. How can I get Durant to the Cavs? Who do we have to give up?
Mobley.
Can we trade Phoenix? Does Ishbia really like Jared Allen?
No, Ishbia doesn't like Dan Gilbert. There's no way in hell he's trading Durant to the Cavs. They hate each
Come
other.
on, man. There's got to be a way.
They hate each other, Mike.
It's all right. Ishbia, man. He needs a championship center. Can't have Nurkic out there. You got to have Jared Allen on there.
Oh boy.
No.
We got a brouhaha in the Lakers Clippers game.
All right.
Zubac's just like throwing who is that guy?
Haymakers?
Oh, Jared Vanderbilt.
All right, there you go.
There's no punches were thrown. It looked like they were about to be, and then the refs got in there real quick. Like,
okay. So you couldn't interest Phoenix in a Jared Allen.
Mike, you can talk about this all you want. There's no way Durant is anything in Cleveland because Ishbia is not trading Durant to the Cavs.
Jared Allen, Karis LeVert, and Isaac Okoro package for Durant. You're not interested?
Does that make the Cavs legitimately an NBA championship team?
Oh God, yeah, they walked to the championship. If you put Durant on
with
this
Mobley
team,
Garland,
you have Mobley, Garland, Mitchell, and Durant, that's a title team.
Can we make the money work? Mike, you need to look at the trade machine.
It's not. Look, I don't really want to fire up the trade machine. I'm just saying if that's a championship move. That's a championship.
He's not Durant.
Obviously. Look, I know it's not going to happen. I'm just saying if of all the things that could happen from a Cavs standpoint, that's something that would push the Cavs over the top. Look, I'm not opposed, honestly, to Cam Johnson or DeAndre Hunter. I just worry that are either one of those guys enough of an upgrade over what we have that you're going to want to disrupt the chemistry and the feel of this team. I mean, I said it to you at the top of the podcast. I don't think Cavs and Celtics healthy. I know we talked about it last week or 2 weeks ago or whatever, that we advanced the Celtics because they won a coin flip. And you had the Cavs and I had the Celtics in the Eastern Conference Final Series. I just don't see I don't see how the Cavs can beat the Celtics in a 7-game series if both teams are healthy. I just maybe it's just the pessimism of being a Cleveland fan, but I just don't see how it happens. Anyway, I don't know. I see another star player being traded. I think that we've already seen enough big deals where people, if you go back maybe 6 weeks or 2 months, there was a lot of talk that the second apron and the new CBA was going to basically put a moratorium on trades. And now it almost feels like teams have figured out some, I don't want to say loophole, but just they figured out ways to make deals work. And maybe the new CBA is actually greasing the wheels of more trades. So I'm going to say yes. I don't know if Jimmy Butler moves because who wants him? Like, I just don't understand who. That's when you look at these guys. So if
Well,
you
the
look at
Warriors were
Jimmy Butler,
interested, but Jimmy Butler said he wasn't signing a contract extension. What a
I just
clown!
like. Look, I don't know. What I don't get is if you look at the contenders and think who would want the guy and who could actually give up something to get either one of those guys, and then what would they have left if they made a trade? Like the Cavs can't do it, the Celtics can't do it, the Knicks can't do it. Who else is the legitimate title of the Bucks? Could the Bucks? What would the Bucks possibly have that Miami or Phoenix would want? Do either of them
Dame.
really want to?
I mean, Dame
I
wanted to
don't
go to
know.
Miami. Dame wanted to go
I
to
know, but
Miami before.
right. But at this point, we've seen kind of where Dame is in his career and what he is. Do do teams? I guess you could see Miami trading him because or trading for him because you just want to get away from Jimmy Butler, and so whatever return you can get for him probably would be a net positive. But does Jimmy Butler and Giannis with God knows what in the backcourt, does that team in any way, shape, or form
No, I
move them
want that
towards the
trade to
top of this?
happen, Mike. I want that trade to happen
Yeah, that
because I'm more
probably
afraid
would
of
help the
Dame for
Cavs.
sure.
Yeah, it probably would help the Cavs. I don't see any other team in the East that would even. Why would any other team in the East entertain taking on Butler or Durant? And then if you look out west, Oklahoma City's not dealing for either of those guys. Memphis, I guess, could, right? They could put together a
Memphis,
package
Memphis
of
is the team I was thinking might be interested. But
yeah.
did wasn't that one? Wasn't that another team that Jimmy Butler said as long as it wasn't Memphis? Wasn't
Yeah,
that?
right, right, right. He's like, I'm not going to Memphis. Yeah, he definitely excluded that. Houston probably could put together a package. They got some draft picks. They got a lot of young guys that probably could play
But would
both
you?
ends.
Here's my question: Would you rather? Would you rather keep those young guys and have them for a
Yes,
long period of time, or
100%,
get Jimmy
hundred
Butler who's going
percent.
to want to quit in a week, a month and a half?
If look, I would never trade for this current iteration of Jimmy Butler in no way, shape, or form. I don't feel like there's any contender here that if you put Jimmy Butler on that team, even if you don't subtract out anything from the current roster, you just say Jimmy Butler's coming there, we're trading draft picks or back of the roster players. We're not really touching our rotation. I don't think there's any team that really truly benefits from bringing on Jimmy Butler. I mean, I just looking up and down the Western Conference, I don't see any team that would want Jimmy Butler. Durant, on the other hand, heftier price tag, both in terms of his salary and in terms of what you probably have to give up in order to be able to get him. So you're probably depleting your roster in addition to your draft capital in order to get Durant. But if you put Durant on the Rockets, if you put Durant somehow on the Denver Nuggets, if you put Durant on Minnesota, if you put Durant, I don't know, could Phoenix get him? Could the Spurs get him from Phoenix?
I
They
don't
probably
know.
could. They probably got enough. I mean, they wouldn't do it, you wouldn't think, but they probably could. If you go with Wemby, De'Aaron Fox, and Durant, be a pretty scary team. I don't think they'd win a title, but I'm not sure I'd want to play them either. So I just don't know where the landing spots are for these guys in terms of them being a difference maker and what teams would really want to deal for, in Butler's case, a guy who's 35 and wants a contract extension and basically decides on a whim whether he wants to play regular season games or not. And then Durant, you've got the injury history, you've got his age, you've got the fact that he hasn't necessarily made the best business decisions over the course of his career since he left the Warriors. And so I don't know. I don't see teams necessarily upsetting their chemistry. Certainly not for Jimmy Butler, but Durant, people would make room for him, especially if you're a legitimate contender. If you fancy yourself as being a team that you really think can win the title, then going out and getting Durant certainly would be a piece that could help you to win an NBA
Yeah.
championship.
All right. So we're not going to say where, but I just want you to answer yes or no. Do these players get traded? All right. Does that sound good?
It sounds good.
Jimmy Butler.
I'm going to say yes, even though I can't believe anybody would want to trade for him. It just feels like Miami's going to give him away for pennies on the dollar, and somebody's going to take a chance.
I agree. Kevin Durant.
No, because I think the price tag is too high, and I don't think there's enough potential landing spots that where it makes sense for a team to go all in based on the where these teams are in their development and their chances of winning a title and what Phoenix would want back. I don't see a package out there that makes sense for all parties.
I agree with that. Does Bradley Beal get traded?
Again, nobody wants him. I don't know how you get him traded. I'm going to say no.
Washington? I'm just kidding. Does Nurkic get traded?
Sure. Trade Nurkic. Some team's going to find value in him. You trade him for a back end of the roster guy and a second round draft pick. Sure.
Okay. Does Draymond Green get traded? Because he's been floated too, Mike.
The Warriors are interesting.
Which here's a question, Mike. Would you want him on the Cavs?
Yeah. For
defensive purposes?
For the right price.
I mean, I don't know how much money is Draymond Green making?
He's making like 30. I think he's making like 30, 32, somewhere in there. I think when he signed that extension, he's somewhere in that range.
Is he expiring this year, or does he have another year?
Nah, he's got multiple years left.
So
he's got multiple years.
Okay, so I know people at Cleveland hate Draymond Green. But
I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of him as a human being or as a teammate or whatever, but I think he could help you win.
I mean, if you can get him for Okoro and Dean Wade, or if you can get him for Dean Wade and
what does Golden State want with those guys though?
I don't know.
I mean, this is my question. I don't know. I don't know what we don't have any draft.
3-team trade.
Golden State's. It depends on what Golden State's trying to do. Clearly, if they're trading Draymond Green, what you're doing.
Could you imagine Draymond Green and George Niang on the same team? Please, baby, let's make it happen. Let's make it happen. We put them out there at the same time talking trash.
Can we get Mo Wagner on that team too? Let's get the
all-time trash talking team.
The triumvirate of annoying individuals. I would say those three probably are pretty close to the pretty close to the top
guess
of the rim.
when I'm thinking about other team players, I really haven't seen many other players' names floated out there, like big time players. I know Draymond's not in the top 30 player, but I guess my last question to you, Mike, do the Cavs make a trade? No, Zion's not going anywhere.
Cavs don't make a trade. Zion doesn't get traded. Brandon Ingram doesn't get traded. Time Lord, you think Time Lord gets traded? I could see that. I could see Time Lord ending up on the Lakers.
Why would they do that, though?
I don't think he's making very much money. I think they could probably trade a salary or two and make it work.
Yeah, I don't know.
He's expendable in Portland. DeAndre Ayton's been killing it, man. 2020s the last couple games.
Yeah, I don't know. What about I don't know. I don't think there's anyone else that I could think of, and probably we're forgetting someone. But
there's nobody else. There's nobody else big that like Houston probably could trade one of their back end guys, Cam Whitmore, who doesn't get to play very much. Maybe he's on the blocks. In the East, I don't think there's anybody really that you'd be saying.
Mike, I'm watching this still. I got the Lakers. They mic'd up Luka tonight. That is awesome.
There you go. That's good. That's good stuff.
But
anything else?
And he doesn't look 270, by the way. I'm just going to say that right now. That rumor. I'm putting that rumor to bed. There's no way he's 270.
Okay. All right. Well,
And what do
maybe
you
he's wearing a
think? Do you
bag.
think he looks? Does you think he look? Did you see him? Did you look like he's 270 pounds? That would mean he's
Maybe he's
heavier
wearing a
than
baggy
LeBron.
shirt.
Come on, man.
Maybe he's wearing a baggy shirt, man.
Come on, man. He's not. He's not heavier than LeBron. Come on, man.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't. But to go back to the top, I don't know how you trade just a 25-year-old guy that's has his resume, no matter what is going on behind the scenes. I think you just have to somehow you got to figure that out,
That's a
and
trap.
either you live with the inconsistency and the dreaming of what would be or what might be if he was in shape. But like I said, to me, the whole thing comes back to the only way that the Mavericks win this trade is if Luka's career just completely goes in the tank because he's injured or out of shape and can't play. I don't think Dallas is going to win a title with the assets they got in this trade. I just don't see that happening.
Can I ask you one other thing I
And
didn't even think about until just now?
what's that?
Does this extend LeBron's career?
It's a good question. I think honestly, I think what that depends upon is what the next 12 months looks like for the rest of the roster. I think if somehow the Lakers are able to put together a better roster than what they have now to upgrade with guys that make sense around Luka and LeBron, and he
So
sees
you're saying
that,
in 2 years when they draft LeBron's other son
yeah,
and they all three on the floor at
when
the same time?
when Bryce could maybe Bryce will be out there with them. I think it has the potential to extend his career. Obviously, part of it is LeBron's got to, at some point, broken record, has to accept that he's going to have to become the number two or slightly adjust and adapt his role to fit Luka, who should clearly be the number one at this point in his career. But if those two can figure it out and the Lakers can build a good roster around them in the next 12 to 18 months, I could see LeBron continuing to play. I mean, if he has a legitimate chance to win titles, even if he's the second fiddle or the third fiddle,
But he's still is still putting up numbers. I mean, my
yeah,
God.
it doesn't, I know it doesn't, let's put it this way. It doesn't hurt his resume if he adds a title or two as the third or second best player on a championship team. Doesn't hurt his resume.
Tonight, LeBron, 26 points, 8 of 13 from the field with 8 assists. That's pretty efficient. 26 points on 13 shots. That's pretty efficient,
He's,
Mike.
he's incredible. I've said it many, many, many times. Just the
My,
longevity and the
my argument
consistency.
stands. My argument stands. Jordan's the greatest basketball player of all time, or in the NBA. The greatest player of all time in the NBA. LeBron is the best athlete in NBA history. There's no doubt. Just like body of work. No one can argue that what he's done in
I mean,
staying healthy.
the best career longevity, without question, and however you want to define that, there's no doubt that his ability to stay healthy and be available is pretty amazing
We'll
for the
never
number
see
of
it
years
again,
that he
Mike.
did.
We'll never see it again. A guy playing as many games all this. There's never going to be a guy who's going to go 20 years, 22
It's gonna be
years,
a long.
whatever.
It's gonna be a long time at this level
Mike,
to play at this
We're
level.
never
It's gonna be
seeing
a
in the
long time.
like. Let's just say we're never seeing it in our lifetimes. Okay,
All right, we'll see. It's a long time. Hopefully.
I don't know.
All right.
Maybe Cal cleansing. Maybe Cal cleansing.
Maybe Cal cleansing will see it. All right. Anyway, on that note, let's leave it there. And I still, whatever, it's Tuesday night still, and it's still hard to wrap your head around the fact that Luka's a Laker and that the Dallas Mavericks got so little in return for Luka in comparison to all the most recent trades of guys like Mitchell and Gobert and Mikal Bridges and the number of draft picks and things that went different directions. It's kind of crazy. And I guess we'll wait and see what happens with the rest of this season. And obviously, it's going to be a long time before the complete and total story of this trade is told. But I find it hard to believe that the Mavericks aren't going to at some point regret having made this deal, and that the Lakers are going to be ecstatic for the next 10 years that for some reason Nico Harrison only wanted to go negotiate with Rob Pelinka and Jeannie Buss and get that deal done. So
Yeah.
anyway, we'll leave it there. Thanks for checking out tonight's trade season NBA episode, and we will catch you next week for that NBA episode. Thanks. All right. Good
Lakers
work,
are
my
up
man.
25 with 8 minutes left.
Yeah. It's a little bit of a destruction.
Bronny hasn't gotten into the game yet though. He's the first person. When does Bronny get in?
I don't know what's the